Rocks was a hero. I know, crazy, right? Well, what if it isn't actually that crazy? What if Rocks actually was a hero? What if Rocks is simply the most misunderstood character in the story? What if I told you that Rocks has far more similarities to Luffy and Dragon than he ever did to Blackbeard? Well, stick around guys, because this theory video is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about this infamous pirate. From Rocks to Emu, Roger, Garp, Luffy, Dragon, and even the Golden Lion Shiki, this theory video is one roller coaster of a ride. So buckle up guys. And if you do get enjoyment out of today's video, then consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It helps me go a long way in making these videos for you guys. Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy, the Nature Boy, back with another video for you guys here today. And today we got an epic Rocks theory to go over. So let's start off by talking about what we already know about Rocks so far. Rocks was officially introduced in chapter 957, titled Ultimate, where Sengoku tells us he was the former captain of an infamous crew known as the Rocks Pirates. This crew contained Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and many other big name pirates, and of course, Captain Rocks himself. We also learned from Sengoku that Rocks was a D and his full name is Rocks D Xebec, and that he's dead, or at least Sengoku says he is. Not only this, but he along with his crew attempted to take down the Celestial Dragons in God Valley. This led Garp, who had a professional duty to protect the Celestial Dragons and a moral duty to protect their slaves, to team up with Roger and take down Rocks, leading to the disbanding of the Rocks crew on that fateful day 38 years ago. This is also the reason Garp has the name the Hero of the Marines. After the incident 38 years ago, God Valley was wiped off the map and Rocks himself was erased from history. So now let's talk about why Rocks was erased from history. Well, one other thing mentioned in chapter 957 is that Rocks wanted to be king of the world. But what does this even mean? Roger became king of the pirates. Almost every pirate today wishes to achieve that same title, but none of them were ever erased from history. So what's so different about king of the world, and what does it mean? Well, to be king of the world, you first have to know what that looks like. And I believe Rocks did. I believe Rocks knew there already was someone who ruled the entire world. And of course, I'm talking about Emu. And if Rocks knew about Emu, this would immediately separate him from the rest of the pirates, deeming him a far greater threat, since not only did he want to be the freest man in the seas, but he wanted to directly take down the person currently ruling the entire world. Basically, not only did he want to be the freest man in the seas, but he also wanted to be the most powerful, and that's where the world government drew the line and decided he needed to be erased. But why did he want this? Why did Rocks want to be king of the world? Why did he want this power and not just the freedom that all of the rest wanted? As we saw with Luffy back in Rayleigh's bar, he states he doesn't want to conquer anything. The only reason he wants to be Pirate King is simply because the Pirate King is the freest man in the seas. Well, I believe Rocks did want to conquer all, but not for selfish reasons, but rather to replace those already in power who were making the world a terrible place, so that once he is in complete power, he could restore the world anew into a place without prejudice, slavery, and all the real world problems that exist in the story of One Piece. Rocks was a smart enough man to understand that personal freedom means nothing when those in complete power and control of the entire world oppose freedom and restrict it almost everywhere else. Even if he did become the freest man in the seas, is he really free when there are those far more powerful than him simply allowing him his freedom and limit it from many others across the world? True freedom comes when one doesn't have to answer to anybody. As long as there is someone playing God, sitting above all others, you can never truly be free. So this is why I believe Rocks wanted that power. He wanted to be the one sitting on that throne so that he could be in complete control. Not necessarily that it would be about him having complete control, but more about those before him no longer having complete control. In order to solve the issues in the world preventing others from being free, you must first remove the person at the head of the issue, the one currently sitting on the throne, that's causing this to happen in the first place. And in order to remove the one currently sitting on the throne, someone with better ideals and moral obligations will need to conquer them and replace them. I believe wholeheartedly that this was Rocks' mission. And if Rocks truly knew about Emu and that there was a king of the world, it would make perfect sense why he spent his time gathering the strongest individual pirates around the world. He didn't care if they were good people. He didn't care if they got along or thought like him. He didn't even care if they fought each other to the death on the ship. That would just mean the weak were weeded out. He didn't care about any of it as long as they understood that he and he alone was the captain of the crew, and it was his purpose that they were all following. And it's not that Rocks necessarily didn't care, it's more so that he could not afford to care. Because Imu is far too powerful to fight without the strongest crew you can possibly get. To Rocks, the only thing that mattered was the greater good. Removing Imu and the world government from power and having an incredibly strong crew was absolutely necessary to make this happen. And if you have a mission this big in the grand scheme of things, it's very easy to justify smaller sacrifices for the greater good. And I also believe this is why Rocks attacked the Celestial Dragons and of course their slaves who could be deemed innocent and undeserving of all of this. But the world that could be built for the future if the right person got on the throne deemed these sacrifices a justifiable means to a greater good. And when he thought he gathered the strongest crew members in the world, he set out to challenge the world government by attacking the Celestial Dragons and Imu and change the world for good. And another thing I really wanted to touch on here is the character contrasts we see in the story and how Oda goes about writing them. Have you guys ever heard of the story of two men, one a heavy drunk and the other never drank a day in his life? But when both men were asked why they are the way they are, they both gave the same answer: because my father was a drunk. This led one man to choose to follow down the path of his father in a hopeless surrender to what he believes is his inevitable fate, while the other man opts to never touch a drink a day in his life, to alter his supposed fate and go in the opposite direction of his father. Two men starting from the exact same beginning and going through complete opposite paths, not because of what happened to them, but how they responded to it. Oda draws character contrasts like this all the time. A perfect example would be the tragic stories of Doflamingo and his younger brother, Rosinante. As brothers, both of them had the same upbringing as young celestial dragons. Both of them were sent down to the common world on their father's decision to live a normal life. Both men had to suffer tragically from their father's decisions, and both men were traumatized by what the commoners had done to them. Life happened to both of them identically. Yet we see Doflamingo take the route of killing his father out of vengeance for his pain and going on to become a ruthless pirate, killing the innocent, conquering islands, and leading tyrannically. We see in Marineford that his philosophy and his idea of justice is really dark but really simple. There's no right or wrong, there's no fair or unfair, there's simply justice, and justice is whatever the winner decides it is. Meanwhile, Rosinante grows to despise his older brother for killing their father and taking this path, and he is saved by Sengoku of the Marines. And we later find out Rosinante has been a Marine since he was very young, under the leadership of Sengoku. He opts to stay undercover as a member of the Don Quixote family, with his true intentions being to take down his brother as a Navy soldier. They both saw how cruel the world was, but rather than simply strive to be at the top so you are the one calling the shots like Doflamingo, Rosinante chose to try and make a real change, a change from within. And his idea of doing this was by becoming a Navy soldier. So we see here both the similarities in how life happened to the two brothers, but also the complete contrast in how they responded to it, and the decisions they made moving forward past that traumatic upbringing. Similar to our real world, something I'm a strong believer in and words that I personally live by are: life isn't what happens to you, but how you respond and react to it. Because none of us can control what happens in our lives. The only thing we can control is how we respond. So how does this all tie back to Rocks? I believe Rocks was very similar to both Luffy and Roger, with similar upbringing and life experiences. He experienced loneliness, he experienced friendship, he experienced love and loss, and he experienced how harsh the world truly is. So unlike Roger and Luffy, I believe he is similar to them in the same way Doflamingo is similar to Rosinante. But the way Rocks responded to what happened in his life and how he saw the world, he decided to take a more immediate approach. Similar to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Both men fought for the same thing, basic civil rights for their people. However, Martin Luther King is well known for his non-violent, peaceful at all times approach, and Malcolm X is more known for his by any means necessary mindset. I think Rocks is similar to the latter in this situation, where how he responded to what he had experienced. He believed in taking a more forward and arguably more realistic approach to changing the world. I believe Rocks simply knew more about the world than Roger or Luffy or anybody else. He knew about Imu, and this forced him to take a more immediate and desperate approach, and basically he was deemed evil for it. One of my favorite quotes in One Piece that I think is often overlooked and underestimated is a fantastic quote by Eustace Kid where he says, "When scum rule the world, only more scum is born." And this quote stands out because of how true it rings to everything we've seen in One Piece. And Rocks understood that as long as scum remained ruler of the world, more scum will always be born. And just like Kid said, us villains look like saints in comparison to the purity of the world nobles. Rocks knew that no one was more evil than those at the top, and no matter what, he had to bring them down at all costs. Collateral damage was simply that, collateral damage. Just like in our real world, history is written by the victors, and they will paint the losers as evil to the rest of the world. And of course, with the loser unable to defend their name since they are long gone, the world simply accepts this and deems them the wrong one. We see this every day in the real world with propaganda in our news, our history, and everything else. And I think in the world of One Piece, Rocks was the biggest victim of this. The world government is essentially evil when you break it down from the top down. And if evil is in charge and censors a person from history, it's most likely because that person spoke the truth and could be seen as good. Just like they fear the Void Century being revealed, they fear the truth about Rocks and what he learned and how close he came, so they erased him. I believe Rocks, and not Roger, was the closest one to changing the world for good. I also believe Rocks knew more than Roger about the world. Sengoku says they directly oppose the world government like terrorists. This is exactly what the Revolutionary Army does and how they paint the Revolutionary and Dragon to the world. I mean, if you think about it, Rocks and the Rocks Pirates were essentially the original revolutionaries. Sengoku also says Garp never wants to talk about God Valley, maybe because Rocks was actually not bad, but Garp had to do his job in order to protect the slaves of the Celestial Dragons that Rocks was willing to lose as collateral damage for the greater good. Garp and Roger would have both been younger back in God Valley, much younger than what we know to be their prime years. Perhaps they came to realize over the years what Rocks really intended to do, and why he was so driven to take such a forward approach. And perhaps this led to Garp not feeling all too proud of what he had to do that day. I also find it extremely hard to believe that Whitebeard would follow just any man, not just from a strength standpoint, but more so and more importantly from a character and moral standpoint. We know that some of the people that the world government tried to censor today are of course the king of the pirates, Goldie Roger, with his name and how they want to censor the D in his name to not let the world know that he was a D and not let the world know about the D clan, so they call him Gold Roger. And we also know that they tried to censor Luffy, hiding some of his achievements such as invading Enies Lobby and burning down the world government flag, the things he didn't impel down, and Marineford. They tried to censor as much of the damage that he's caused as possible, and with the recent chapters and his Gear 5 awakening, they tried to censor his devil fruit from the world. As we see, they are extremely frustrated when they find out that Big News Morgans uses a Gear 5 picture as Luffy's wanted poster. So they are trying to censor bits and pieces of guys like Roger and Luffy throughout the story like we've seen so far. Well, then that begs the question, what about the man whose entire existence they've censored altogether? This is why I believe Rocks' bounty will be greater than anyone else. Roger, Whitebeard, even Dragon. Rocks was the most feared man ever by the world government organization because he was the closest to taking them down, perhaps since Joy Boy. So now the question is, why eliminate Rocks from history? Well, for one, I believe that Rocks personally knew about Imu, and anyone that finds out about Imu gets wiped out from history, as we see of course with Sabo in chapter 1060. I also believe that Imu attempted to destroy the island of God Valley, but Shiki saved it and is the one currently keeping it in hiding right now with his Devil Fruit awakening. We know that Sengoku in chapter 957 says that the island of God Valley had simply vanished, and he did not say that it was destroyed. So this is just part of the reason why I believe the island is still intact. But regarding the stuff with Shiki, that's an entire different topic that I will mention in a separate video on another day. And of course, no one else knew about the truth of the world at that time, including Roger, and that's why they took Rocks down. Rocks was the only real threat at that point in time. And this is why I believe that Dragon, yes, Dragon and not Blackbeard, is the one currently inheriting Rocks' will. Dragon even seems to resemble Rocks with similar hairstyles and potentially similar faces. This could also potentially be why Blackbeard's ship, the Saber of Xebec, could not reach Dragon, because he is the will of Xebec. Xebec also waited to gather the strongest crew and resources before the day of God Valley when he finally made his move, and the one person who seems to be gathering more strength, intel, and knowledge, patiently waiting for their big day, the person most opposed and determined to take down the world government today, is also Dragon. Perhaps Dragon learned from Rocks' failure and now understands what it truly takes to bring down such a force, and so he bides his time carefully. Sengoku also says that, according to the news reports, Rock's pirates were wiped out at God Valley. But remember guys, this is a story where Oda deliberately shows us time and again the lies behind news reports with Big News Morgans. So to me, this could potentially be a lie and Rocks could potentially still be alive. So that's the theory video for today guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching this video, and if you guys enjoyed this one, there is going to be a part 2 of this video and it's going to be even better than this one, trust me. And I'll give you guys a little teaser right now. It's going to be centered around Shanks, and it's going to be a major Shanks theory that ties right back into this Rocks theory. So stick around for that one guys. It's going to be hype. I'm going to get it out as soon as I can. And if you guys enjoyed this video, in the meantime, go ahead and watch my theory video on Akainu and Aokiji and what I believe truly went down with them at Punk Hazard. So I'll leave that video up here for you guys, or here, wherever. Go ahead and watch that one guys. Thanks for watching as always. Nature Boy out.